Good evening, good evening, good evening. Oh, wait. It's not evening. It's actually morning. Yeah, this episode is a morning special. This is the episode number 884 for WeatherBrains. This is the pre-show. And you know the deal with the pre-show, it's the magical time of the program where we share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and we say really outrageous things. So, let's kind of get everything set up here. We're doing the show here, a morning episode. We're recording this on Thursday, December the 22nd. The show will be airing or released to the world in podcast form late Monday night, December the 26th. This is the week after Christmas. I'll be off next week. Of course, most people say that I'm off every week, but I'll be away from work next week. So this will enable me to do that. So let's get the embed code rocking and rolling here. So when the time comes, they can air this. They'll be airing this on the television side Monday night at the usual time, 8 Eastern, 7 Central. And I think we got most of the guests invited here. So let's see if we can start bringing folks in. So, yeah, it's morning specials on here. You never know what happens on WeatherBrains on a morning special. It might be totally unhinged.
A brunch special.
Yes.
Got my orange juice this morning.
He has his Bloody Mary in hand there, getting set for the show.
Good old Florida's best or whatever. I hope our guest shows up.
It might be just me and you here.
Talking about the weather.
You might check you're using your AirPods or your internal mic or what you got going on there.
Yeah, I do.
Sounds like you might be using the crappy laptop mic.
Sorry about that. Now, is that better?
Yes.
I need to get my big microphone back out. It's right here. It's too late.
Yeah, man.
Get hit in the head with it.
The mighty Heil PR20. That's a good mic.
Looks impressive.
Just finished the Jim Dunaway show.
Yeah.
Sports guys. Yeah, those sports guys get me in there. I don't know why they want me on their show, but we talked a little weather, a little sports, a little nonsense. What it is, it's Christmas and they don't have everybody's vamoosed and they have no other guest options. When they get really desperate, they call me. So, because they know that
you're the always, Saban whisperer. So
I'm always
an important position.
Always around. And I'm excited. There's no school programs this week, so there's no school talk today. So after this, I'm going to go to the Piggly Wiggly down here and get some lunch. They do a good lunch at the Piggly Wiggly. Goodness gracious, it's good.
Oh, wait a minute now. This might be something I need to hear about here.
Gosh, I mean, those people during COVID, those people saved my life down there. They opened up this really nice Piggly Wiggly right down the street, and during COVID, I did the weather here at the house. I'm home, and having that thing right down there, goodness, it was just outstanding. I mean,
so what do you get, like chicken livers and mashed potatoes?
Well, it's different every day. They'll roll out. Some days they'll have ribs and wings. They got country fried steak. They got fried chicken, they baked chicken. You got spaghetti. You got it's like a meat and three, and it changes every day. And it's really, really good. I mean, those
or
ladies,
as we say in Birmingham, a Greek in three, because all the Greek restaurateurs.
But I still got to go to that gas station in Edwardsville. And man, I'm telling you, when I saw that, I literally ran off the road. It said best gas station food ever. And that's me. And it was too early that they weren't, ready yet. But at some point, I'm going to make a pilgrimage to Edwardsville, which is between Heflin and Fruithurst, near the Georgia state line. And I'm going to go by. And if you read the reviews, there are hundreds of them. People drive to that place from all over, from Georgia and Tennessee to eat at that gas station. So. Wow.
And you ran in like Elf and yelled, congratulations.
Oh, man, I was banging on the door. I mean, it was just too early in the day. All right, so I got to figure out what I have not done here yet, because I know I've not done something, because it's been kind of but maybe I have. And we've got the invites sent a little earlier this hour.
Yeah.
And I've got the embed code because this will not be live on television now. This will be live on television Monday night at the usual time. So that's fixed. Other than that, I think I'm okay here. So
I heard from him on the 20th. He said he got us down for 1600 UTC on Thursday, December 22nd. Yeah. So hopefully that'll work. It is 1600 UTC, isn't it?
Yes. 16.
Just a couple of minutes before.
16Z is 10 o'clock Central. It's 9:57. So you get 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And
this was in response to your request for a show about weather and how it influences pain.
Yeah, because people ask me that all the time, and I look, I'm the wrong guy to be asking here. I mean, I have thoughts, but oh, good. We have an Arctic correspondent in the Arctic air mass.
Yeah.
So we can get an update on the story behind the numbers here. Looks like it's 8 in Tulsa.
It's pretty bad. We had
it just has an evil look. It just, you see the pictures and it just looks mad.
Yeah, it does. Feels pretty mad too when you step outside. It's brutal.
It looks like it's coming through Dallas, and it's coming to northwest Arkansas. It's coming through St. Louis, and it's nearing Chicago. And these are air temperatures on the screen share there. And again, this is as of 9:30 Z, or 9:30 Central, 15:30 Z.
Yeah, this we should be back above freezing Christmas afternoon, so this won't even crack our top 10 list of consecutive hours below freezing, as bad as it is.
Yeah, 89, we had multiple shots here that kept it going for a much longer period of time. All right, David is with us. David, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you great.
Already
Awesome.
dark where you are, huh? After Tulsa.
Is that all right? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
you
sir.
sound great.
You're
okay.
loud and clear. We're communicating telephonically. This is good.
Great. Hopefully this will be a better experience than last time where I had a real crap internet connection.
No, you look good, sound good.
5x5.
Yeah, 5x5. And if you're on CW, it's 559 or 599. You have to add in the extra digit for Morse code for ham radio dweebs. All right, well let's get the thing started here. We'll make this a fairly short show, so we won't keep everybody too long here. We typically do a fairly short one for the Christmas, the week after Christmas. So, all right, here we go. Recorder 1 and recorder 2, and here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Join the American Meteorological Society by becoming a member of the band. The AMS Weather Band is a global community of weather enthusiasts dedicated to learning and sharing their love of science. Visit amsweatherband.org to learn more and join the band today.
Hey, it's WeatherBrains, episode number 884, the weekly show all about weather. This is for the 26th of December, our post-Christmas show. 2022. And a little secret just between us here, we're actually recording the show on December 22nd because somebody involved here wants to take a week away from work. And last year, I did not get my week away from work because of a snow event and a tornado event. And it looks really, really, really quiet next week where I happen to be, which is great. But let's just and again, we're doing this on Thursday before Christmas, the 22nd. So let's go to our Arctic correspondent, James Adelot, who is in the midst of the Siberian air mass for a live update from Tulsa, Oklahoma, the frozen tundra. James A., how bad is it?
We bad enough that Tulsa issued their first snow squall warning in the office's existence. So they're kind of targeting some bigger highways with those as a band of heavier snow mostly moves north of Tulsa. We're making some pretty sorry dendrites right now, little flecks of tiny snow blowing around. pulled up Mesonet. While it's 8 degrees at the Mesonet station about 2 miles from my house, the wind sensor has frozen, which is probably good because now I can't look at wind chill. But yeah, it's as bad as it is. It's not going to crack our top 10 list of consecutive days or consecutive hours below freezing. But it's pretty doggone cold. Parts of our area will be below zero tonight.
How about that for that latitude? And again, let me just say that most of our regulars are not on the show this week and that they're traveling or some are busy. Jen's busy with doing radio work with this Arctic blast. But the whole gang will gather back together again for our first show of 2023, which will be Monday, the 2nd of January. But Bill Murray, let's bring in our guest. I cannot wait to get into this topic. This is going to be a good show.
Yeah, this is a good deal right here because we get to have a brunch show, James. I always love a brunch show with a good glass of orange juice when we're doing, because we're usually doing this at 7:00 at night on Monday nights. But this week's guest WeatherBrain joined us back in May on show 852. But we really didn't talk about one of the most interesting things that he has done lately. And I was really excited, James, when you asked me to look into this topic when I found out that he actually was doing some pretty cool research in that regard. But, he is the editor of the Monthly Weather Review, which is, obviously the prestigious weather journal, the AMS. And as Bill Curtis says, that makes him kind of a big deal right there. But not only that, he's one of the most respected meteorologists on Earth. We'll talk about his background a little bit more and about a very interesting topic. Dr. David Schultz, welcome back to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you all.
Same to you. Merry Christmas. How are things in England right now? What's your weather like?
Just got back from walking the dogs. There's some light rain around. It's been overcast today. Yesterday was really nice. It was one of those classic, what we like to think of as a nice English winter day. Clear skies, upper 40s Fahrenheit. It was a very pleasant day. Yeah, today is more typical of what we see.
Yeah, we're probably pretty similar to you here. We're in the 40s and have a little bit of light rain misting this morning. James is exporting to us. We're not looking forward to. So we get that. We get that about 9:00 tonight here. So, well, are you ready for the holidays? You mentioned Christmas, of course, is right around the corner. Are you all set and ready to go?
Yeah, tree is up and decorated. I have all my presents. My wife is out shopping now. Just need to wrap a few, and then we're set to go. Pick up the turkey on Saturday, and yeah.
That sounds awesome. So, talk about your interest in weather. It started at a pretty young age, if I remember. Tell us where you grew up and how you kind of got into weather.
Yeah, I grew up on the south of Pittsburgh, in northern Washington County in Pennsylvania, and I was a scout. I liked being outdoors. Got my weather merit badge and everything, and I knew I would go into science of some kind, and I think it was definitely in the physical sciences that I was being drawn, and yeah, I mean, I just thought I really like earth science. I like being outside. I like being able to explain the natural world, and so that's what I gravitated towards, and so I applied to universities, thinking I'm going to be a meteorologist.
Well, I remember a story that I heard about you that said you really like KDKA in Pittsburgh and had
Where do you get these stories from? Where are these spies that you have on me?
I have a secret source.
No kidding. That's a really rare fact. But yeah, no, it was. My mom says that she ran into Bob Kudzma in the grocery store or whatever, and told him about my interest in weather. This was when I was in high school, and so I think it was when I got my Eagle Scout award, he had written a letter and said, come on down to the studios, if you're interested in a career in meteorology, and I'll show you around. Never took him up on that offer, sadly, but yeah, I mean, I guess that's where it all started.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like you. I know you ended up at MIT. I had a chance because I did a science project in high school that the local caught the eye of the local board of education superintendent, and he had ties to MIT, and thought I should do that. But I was discouraged from going there because, or I personally didn't want to go there because it was far, far away in snowy Boston, and I didn't know. If I knew then what I knew now, I'd be fairly dangerous. And it didn't have a traditional meteorology program, if I remember correctly. Talk about that, how you navigated that process.
Yeah, but that's a pretty astute observation. When I applied, so this was 1982 or so, and back then there was no internet. You went to the high school guidance counselor and said, I'm interested in meteorology, and they actually would dial into some kind of mainframe and then put in meteorology into the computer, and it would spit out all kinds of universities that would offer meteorology degrees. And I remember some of the choices. I don't remember which ones. I just thought, knowing what I know now, I thought those are pretty unusual choices. And meteorology, MIT was on the list, and you were correct on the books. They have a meteorology program, but at least at that time in the mid 80s, they didn't have a lot of undergraduates pursuing it. The courses that they offered were primarily graduate level courses, and of course you could still major in the generic degree, Earth, atmosphere, and environmental and planetary science. And that's what I did. I chose course 12, as they called it, and I got to a point in my at the end of the second year where I had to make a decision. I had to say, okay, well, how am I going to manage my way through this degree? Because it was very broad and they offered you a lot of flexibility. And I had taken a lot of geology courses and loved that and had great instructors. I had dabbled in some of the meteorology courses that were at the graduate level, and I felt like I kind of struggled with that as, sophomore at university might with a master's or PhD level course. Or I just thought, well, I could just get a generic degree and just kind of pursue whatever I wanted. And so I decided at that point that it's probably better to have a complete degree in geology than kind of struggle to learn meteorology before I'm ready to, at least at that level, or to just leave and have a generic earth science degree that I felt maybe that wouldn't be very employable. And so that's what I did for the third and fourth years. I did that. Although when I had the opportunities, I still took atmospheric science or oceanography or environmental science courses that were offered, at MIT.
So where did you go for your master's and your PhD? And
so my master's was at the University of Washington, and I worked under Cliff Mass. We studied the evolution of extratropical of an extratropical cyclone that's actually not that dissimilar from the one that just happened in the central U.S. And that led me to study how fronts form and particularly occluded fronts. And we were using mesoscale models at the time, which at that time the one that was in use was MM4. That was two predecessors to, people might have heard of the WRF model, the WRF model. So it was quite a long time ago, but that's the model we were using at the time. And then I got my master's there, and then went to State University of New York and worked on my PhD there, continuing the theme of extratropical cyclone and frontal structure and evolution. And that was under Lance Bozard and Dan Kaiser. And both of those experiences in Seattle and Albany were great.
Did you ever stop in the middle part of the country? You've gone.
Well, that was my postdoc. I had done a lot of traveling around the country. I loved to road trip, and so I'd done a couple very long road trips. But yeah, after I finished my PhD, I ended up at the Severe Storms Laboratory in University of Oklahoma, where I stayed for 10 years. Yeah. Boomer sooner.
And Dr. Schultz, you spent a lot of time with the students there, and that had a lot to do with your excellent book, Eloquent Science. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, that was another one of those experiences that you just kind of fall into, and then you don't realize really the impact of it. We had what's called an REU program. It's called Research Experience for Undergraduates. And we brought undergraduates, 10 of them from around the country, to NSSL in Oklahoma for the summer. That was an experience. And then they were paired with a mentor, and they did a research project. And then they went back and finished their degrees at their home universities. But this was sponsored by the National Science Foundation, and OU had one of these REUs, and so that's what I got involved in. And for many summers, I had summer students. And of course, they had to write up a little project at the end, and they obviously had not written up a science report before, so we gave them training in presentation skills and scientific writing skills. And those notes that I was developing and the presentations ended up growing and growing, and they became more kind of unwieldy and just kind of growing in a very organic way, and they weren't very well organized. And I thought, I went to I went to an AMS conference once, and I thought, some of these presentations are pretty horrible. I said the students that we trained did better, and that's when I had the idea, maybe if I take these notes that we had developed and turn them into a book, that might be useful to lots of people. And so over the next few years made that happen, and I'm really pleased that the AMS agreed to publish it and market it and make that book available. It's been one of the highlights of my career, and it's really transformed what I do and how I think about, teaching and science and so much of my career.
And the same for a lot of other scientists too. And I hear it's being translated into other languages and things now.
Yeah. Again, it's one of these things that you just kind of go, I'm just really honored that this happened. But a colleague that I had not met before in China had contacted me about translating one of my papers on communicating science, and then that kind of grew into a whole group of them who said, "Well, we want to translate your book," and it was published this year, or no, last year by the China Meteorological Press. So that's the press that their China Meteorological Agency, the equivalent of their weather service, that they publish. So, that's now available in Chinese too, if you're so desired to get a copy.
Yeah, James Adelite can probably read it in Mandarin, so he probably would be fine with that. It wouldn't surprise me one bit if he did. But talk about your work with IPEX and that field study and any other exciting ones that you did along the way, because I thought that was pretty fascinating.
Yeah, sure. I guess I had a colleague and a friend, Jim Steenberg. He's now a professor at the University of Utah, and we continued to be friends when I was in graduate school and he was in Utah, and so when I came to the Severe Storms Lab, we started talking about different field work that we could do, and the idea came, well, let's look at orographic precipitation in the Wasatch Mountains and lake effect snowstorms off the Great Salt Lake, and so me being at the Severe Storms Lab, we were able to wrestle up some field observing equipment. So we had the mobile laboratories, the mobile sounding launches. We had the Hurricane Hunter P3 aircraft that came to Salt Lake. We had a couple mobile radars as well. and so in the winter for a month in February 2000, we were in northern Utah studying snowstorms.
And it seems now there's a lot of concern about the health of the Great Salt Lake. Are you following that with any interest?
Yeah, I've heard about that the lake level is down low, and Jim and I have been talking. He actually sent me something about how people wanted to seed clouds or whatever, thinking that might be a solution to filling up the reservoir. But I'm not sure that that's not going to be very effective, I think.
Mm-hmm. So how did you end up in Europe? That seems interesting too.
Yeah, so I was always looking around for positions, faculty positions, and this opportunity came up in Finland, where they were looking for a mesoscale meteorologist, a professor level person who could bridge the gap between the kind of research that they wanted to do and were doing at the Finnish Meteorological Institute. So again, their equivalent of the Weather Service and NOAA, really, because they have a research branch as well. And with the University of Helsinki, which was co-located right across the street. And the position was really clever because it was funded a third by FMI, the Finnish Met Institute, a third by the university, and then a third by the Vaisala company, which again was also located in a suburb of Helsinki. And so I remember when I went out there, I was just really impressed because perhaps you'd not heard about Finland and all the research they were doing, but they had a lot to show me. They were this was right during the period of Nokia's heyday. So there was a lot of research money floating around, and they were very optimistic in the country. And they had built an impressive mesoscale observing network within Helsinki and its metropolitan area. And it was just, I just saw all these opportunities, and I thought, this sounds like a place that I want to be. And so for 3.5 years, I was there, being part professor, teaching courses, doing research as well, but then also helping the forecasters to learn the techniques of severe storm forecasting and high resolution modeling that we were starting to use in the United States.
It seems I saw a documentary on Finland at the Fairhope Film Festival a couple of years ago that purports that the Finnish folks are the happiest people on earth. Did you find that to be true?
Yeah, really, really did. They not too much phases them. Unlike kind of the partisan battles that you see in the United States and in the UK for that matter, they explained it to me. One person explained it to me one time. They said the difference between a liberal and a conservative in Finland is how much they want to subsidize the bus fares for. And I thought, that's actually pretty smart. And it's true. I mean, for 40 euros, I could get a pass that, on any public transportation for a month within the Helsinki city area. I mean, it was just great. I mean, it was expensive to live there, but in part that was also because they paid people living wages, and minimum wage was actually pretty good, and I couldn't complain about my salary either so much. I mean, it was just a real nice, happy place. Of course, it's a little colder than I've lived before, but the summers when it was sunny, were beautiful because, of course, they had the long summer days.
It seems like they had an unusual custom of jumping in some ice baths too. That did not look very fun to me. So
yeah, I got roped into doing that once. That was I did it. I can say I did it. It was very refreshing, but yeah.
Yeah, that looked a little uncomfortable there, but it would have been fun to try. So, but James Spann had asked me to, have someone on to, talk intelligently about the link between weather and pain. And so I was really excited when I went back and found that you were behind some outstanding research, a citizen science project in England, that addressed this. So talk first about what we mean when we say a citizen science project.
So citizen science is basically involving people who aren't scientists into the process of science. And in this case, what it involved was having people download an app to their phone and then report on their daily wellness conditions, how well they slept, how much physical activity they did, how much time they spent outside, their level of pain, and their mood. So there were 10 different measures that we collected from people every day, and our experiment ran for 15 months. And during that time, we had over 1,000 people download the app, and not everyone continued throughout the entire project, but we collected 5 million pieces of information that really allowed us to address this question of do people who have chronic pain feel, well, not only feel, but, is there a link between, the pain that they're feeling on any given day and the weather or the weather changes that happen on a day-to-day basis. I suppose we'll get into it, but this idea, it's out there. A lot of people believe it. 3/4 of people in many different surveys published in many different people, many different cultures, all suggest that they feel that the weather influences their pain at some level for people who have to live with chronic pain every day. But the doctors don't necessarily believe that. And when you look at the literature on this, it's a very mixed bag of results. For pressure, the scientific literature, for instance, as many studies report no effect as report high pressure causes people's pain versus low pressure causing people's pain. And so it's no wonder that the doctors go, I can't make any sense of this, so it must not be an effect that's realistic. But the patients certainly believe it.
Yeah, they swear by that. And I know we all have had an uncle or a parent or a grandparent or an aunt somewhere along the way that would swear by a piece of folklore that tied an ailment to some sort of weather phenomenon. And I'm sure we've all experienced that. And I guess I've never really thought about it, but I did believe that there probably is some sort of link there. It certainly seems like there could be. So 5 million data points is a tremendous number of data points, and something that probably could have never been done before the smartphone and the wearable became as ubiquitous as they are now.
Yeah, it was one of those things that what you can do is we did a review article that looked at the best studies, the best empirical studies that have looked at the weather-pain relationship. And we plotted the number of people in the study along the x-axis, and then the amount of time that the study went on the other axis. And the study was like a big L. The data points on that graph were just big L shaped. There were either lots of people in the study, but they collected data like 2 or 3 times, or there were a few people in the study, but they were followed for many days. But the problem with that is that just doesn't yield enough data points. Obviously, pain, there's so many other principal causes of pain. The weather isn't what drives most people to have painful episodes. and people with chronic pain, of course, report that. But it's like the weather more modulates their pain than controls it. And so, in order to get at this kind of very secondary effect, you need to collect first large data, and you need to collect different data rather than just the weather and the pain. You need to exclude other possibilities like their mood, because we know that mood is a very strong relationship. If you wake up and you had a good night's sleep and you're feeling great and you're looking forward to the day, minor pain irritations aren't such a big deal for you. But if you wake up in a foul mood and you're depressed and everything, then of course minor irritations will take on a more significant feeling for you. And that's all we can collect on pain. There's no you can't really do objective measures of people's pain. It all has to be self-reported. And that, again, is one of the things that we really struggled with after having collected all this data. We're like, okay, now how do we analyze it? Because, no one's done this kind of study before. And now we have all these other things that are potentially what the epidemiologists would call confounders, things that would disrupt a very simple relationship between the weather and pain. And you have to address those confounders in some way. And so it fell to the epidemiologists on the team and the biostatisticians and the mathematicians to figure out ways to deal with it. I was just along for the ride as the meteorologist, helping to interpret the patterns and what the difference between dew point and relative humidity was, things like that.
Well, the paper in BAMS is really fascinating, and it will be my pick of the week today.
Oh, thanks.
But I thought it was interesting that obviously with the wearables and the app and all these things, you could immediately pinpoint their location and tie that back into the meteorology, which wouldn't have even been reasonably possible for a large study, even 15 or 20 years ago.
That's right. I mean, the previous studies that we looked at, some people were hospital bound. Well, obviously then you knew where they were, and so you could get the weather. Of course, the problem is if you're hospital bound, you're probably not outside experiencing at least the temperature and the humidity in its native environment. Of course, the pressure inside and outside a building are going to be the same. But at least for those weather variables, you're not going to be able to say anything really about what the weather outside is doing to people who are inside all the time. Again, so that's another one of the things that you kind of have to control for if you really want to do this study seriously. And so, again, 10,000 people downloaded the app and participated in this study. And again, I just really want to tip my hat to these people. Thank you for doing that. And I mean, you probably all have smartphones, downloaded apps all the time, and then never even open them. Certainly done it, guilty. And let alone, all right, so even people that open it once and then go, oh, that's not very interesting, and then never download it again or remove it. So many people in this study voluntarily participated in this study day after day, for months on end, to give us this super record of data. And, I'm not sure that we could pay them back, but, we kept engaging with them. We sent them newsletters, about our activities, how the research was going. We, of course, linked them to charities that, for arthritis and other charities for people that live with chronic pain. And again, I met people would email us with questions, and I was just very touched by some of the emails that we had. I mean, we had people who were saying, that they would experience the pain, nearly instantaneously on an hour by hour basis. I mean, just shocking, I have no reason to discount what they're saying because, the results of our study, I think, are pretty self-evident. We were only collecting data on a daily basis from people, but to hear these stories of people who were suffering on an hour-by-hour basis when they felt the weather was changing that quickly and they could feel it were, again, just jaw-dropping.
I know there's a lot of ties that I've heard anecdotally between, migraines, headaches, and pressure patterns and things like that. But talk about your findings, sort of what the results were.
So we've published a number of papers using a number of different methods. So the first paper that was out, and we were actually, before we published anything, we were actually testing a number of different methods to see, would they all give the same results? Would they all, did they make sense physically? And would they be something that we could explain in a journal article that would be read obviously by lots of people with lots of interest, not just epidemiologists and biostatisticians. And so we really worked hard to craft that message with the first paper that, again, handled things from a very epidemiological point of view. The paper you're referring to is one that I led a year later, and there we weren't using epidemiological methods. We were using the methods of a synoptic meteorologist to look at, okay, when a large number of people are reporting pain in the UK, what's the weather pattern? And when we reach a minimum in the fraction of people who are reporting pain on any given day, what is that weather pattern? And on any given day, typically in our study, about 15-16% of people would report what we call a pain event. And that was what people would do was report their pain level on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 was low and 5 was high. And we called a pain event a 1 increment change from day to day. So if someone reported a 3 on Wednesday and then reported a 4 on Thursday, then that was a pain event for them. And so, like I said, on any given day, about 15% of the UK people in our study were reporting a pain event. On days that were the highest, this could be over 22%. On the low days, this was down around 10% of the population. So there's about a 2-to-1 shift between days that high number of people were reporting versus the low days where a low percentage of people were reporting. And the results kind of fit the anecdotal evidence that people were telling us, that when the pressure is low or falling, people felt more likely to report a pain event. When the pressure was high over the UK, then they were less likely to report a pain event. And again, the two different papers had different methods, and that meant that the data sets weren't exactly the same that went into them, and so there were slightly different results when you dig down into it. But that was kind of the bottom line result. When there's a low pressure system and the weather that accompanies the low pressure system, stronger winds, warmer temperatures, warmer air coming up on the east side of the low, then that's when people tended to experience greater pain. And the opposite was true when there was higher pressure. And again, when we got that result, I'm like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. I mean, you got the paper in front of you, and if you look at that one figure, it's figure 4, and that's the pressure pattern for high and low days. I mean, the bullseye is right over the UK, both for the high and the low. And I'm like, I couldn't believe my luck. And it just fit so well, fit with the bulk of the anecdotal evidence that we heard from participants. It was consistent with the epidemiological event. it just all fit together. And most importantly, we had the biggest data set ever. We were able to exclude, confounders. We were able to test, well, what happens if it's not just a 1 increment in pain threshold that causes pain events? What if it's 2? Again, the results were insensitive to many of those confounders. It just gave me a big, warm feeling that, this is the kind of work that I think people really wanted to see done.
I've got a question about that. First of all, I love the term confounder. As somebody who's a grad student in emergency management right now from meteorology, it's been interesting to get into a lot of this behavioral stuff that's so subjective and different than these straight up quantitative things that we do in meteorology. But my question would be, not to bring calculus into everything and stop down, but did you correlate the rate of change with people reporting pain? Does that correlate well with any meteorology, like a faster pressure drop, a faster rate of change, or something like that?
We looked at the lag effect. So given people's pain on, say, Wednesday, what was the weather on Tuesday, Monday, Sunday? And I don't remember those numbers off the top of my head, but I don't remember them being that important. So the lag effect wasn't really the most important thing there.
It's kind of surprising. I mean, and like Bill said, I was lucky enough to have my grandmother babysit for me every day after school, and I heard those stories. We all know people. Fibromyalgia is one that a lot of people that I know report. But again, sample size 1. This is great to see.
Yeah. No, the idea that we were able to do this and really come up with solid statistics, and we tried hard to I don't want to say break it, but we tried hard to make sure this just wasn't a fluke, or that we would be accused of p-hacking, if you know that term. Just there's 1,000 different relationships you can look for, and here's the one relationship that explains it, and all the others are not statistically significant. That wasn't the case at all. So everything again just held together really nicely into this study.
Were there any particular kinds of pains reported that had a higher relationship, a higher correlation, or maybe that went the other way?
We had people self-identify what particular disease they had. And we published a study recently that looked at the different types of diseases. I don't have those results in front of my head. I wasn't the lead author on that one, but let me see if I can find.
Yeah, man. While you're looking, David, I get the same question all the time. People come to me and they might have a common cold. Some people have chronic migraines. Some people have cancer, these high acuity patients, and they have different reasons for pain. And that's a great question that is very interesting. I'd love to kind of get an answer on that, because, and again, I don't answer any of them. I try and refer them to different sources, but this whole time, this is great information, and what you're sharing today, it's really good for those of us that are practitioners that deal directly with the public. And where they're going to come to one of us most likely. And so this is great information.
Yeah. So that was what this study, this was by one of the members of the group, Belay Yimmer, and he looked at, are there different groups that are particularly more sensitive to the weather, and just even within, forgetting their diagnosis, there were people who were more sensitive to higher temperatures. There were people who were more sensitive to lower temperatures, people who were more sensitive to higher pressures and lower pressures, and so forth. And, without getting into all the statistics about that, some of these were actually statistically significant groups. And for the most part, they seem to not have concluded that there were big differences between the different diagnoses here, but there were some groups where they said there may have been some slight differences. Again, I'm having a hard time finding it in the paper, but certain diseases may have skewed more towards temperature or pressure than the others. But again, I think we've still got a lot more stuff to look at with this data set. One thing that I'm looking at now with one of my PhD students, one of our PhD students, the team's PhD students, Claire Little, is what's the effect of people being inside or outside? So we know people who are definitely inside the whole time because of their self-reporting, and we of course know people who are outside for part or most of the time during the day. And so we've separated those studies, those people, into two different groups, and we're looking at their sensitivities. And I'm hoping to have something to present at the AMS annual meeting in a few weeks. Fingers crossed we get the analysis done. But this is the beauty of this data set. It's huge, and you can ask all these kinds of questions. And so, James, when you get these people coming up to you, you can say, well, I can't tell you in particular, what your sensitivities are, but, certainly taken as a whole population in the UK, people who participated in this study seem to indicate that, yes, indeed, there are some sensitivities among some members of the people, some participants in the study. So I think, again, that to me is very satisfying, because all these other studies, they may claim statistical significance, but their sample sizes were really small in one way or another, or they had methodological flaws or so forth. And we really tried to address most of the issues. Naturally, the one thing we couldn't really address was that we were perhaps biasing people in the study, right? I mean, if you say, we're going to have a study that looks at whether people who have chronic pain feel that the effect, that's modulated by the weather, well, a whole bunch of people who think that are going to join your study. And but again, the beauty of the size of the statistics is that we were able to separate out the people who had a strong belief from the people who had a weak belief or didn't believe that there was a signal. And guess what? The results were pretty much the same regardless of which population you looked at. So even people who didn't believe in a weather-pain relationship, again, may have experienced this weather-pain relationship at the same frequency as the people who had a strong belief. So although we couldn't blind the people to the study in the first case, we could do a post-study analysis to demonstrate that there was no effect in that regard.
So I'm hoping, too, that this opens the door for future work. The next question involves mental health and weather. And again, mental health, nobody wants to talk about it, but it's a big deal. Every family deals with it. And I have so many questions from families from that they perhaps have a son or a daughter or a parent that has bipolar disorder, and they notice a change in their behavior, not during the typical cycle of bipolar disorder, but weather changes. And so I think that whole mental health question is on the table too at some point, maybe in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I was probably in the more skeptical side of this, although both my parents have arthritis and have said that they experience this weather effect. But I think that my eyes have been opened by this study, and I'm more open to these ideas. Of course, the problem is overcoming that sample size issue and designing a study that takes those confounders into effect when you collect the data so that you can test the rigor of your analysis after the fact. And if you get people to do that, then I think you have the potential to address these really fundamental questions. But yeah, I mean, we just happened to fall into this study because the lead professor was a professor of digital epidemiology, was into this idea of using smartphones and apps and even the accelerometers in your phone to diagnose diseases and get objective, more objective measures than just people showing up at their doctor's office once every 6 months. And then when the doctor says, well, how has your pain been? They give, oh, it's been all right. There have been some days and other days. I mean, if you're a doctor and you're trying to understand the causes and triggers for people's pain events, that's not very helpful. But if you have a daily record of people self-reporting their pain levels, well, then you can do, these kinds of studies and start to ask the question, okay, was there something that someone did on a particular day that led to them having a pain event? Was it something they ate? They didn't sleep right? They went hiking the day before? What was it? And that's essentially what the epidemiological study asked. What happens differently for people who experience a pain event to people who don't, to the same person who doesn't experience a pain event.
So, Dr. Schultz, do you believe that the results, at least as far as the pressure goes, could be transported to other locations, like the United States? Do you think that relationship is general enough, or there's some pretty strong caveats there?
I'm open to thinking that and here's the one caveat that I will say, that it's a mid-latitude location, right? Because we experience the fluctuations every 3 to 5 days every week, due to the progression of shortwave troughs and low pressure systems, high pressure systems. If you're in Spain, if you're in Arizona, Southern California, I'm less skeptical, more skeptical that that relationship wouldn't be as strong, and you'd probably have to collect a lot more data, or maybe it's not possible because I mean, isn't that the joke? That when people want to get away from their pain, they go they go to the Southwest,
Right.
So I think I'm open to thinking that a study that was done in other mid-latitude locations would show similar effects.
So now, is there a parade of patients going to their doctors, study in hand, to say, you should be listening to me?
Well, I mean, I would. It's funny because when the studies started coming out, and we were covered in the Washington Post, and what do they say? Never read the comments sections, right? And the comment sections, they were too bimodal distribution. They were the people that are like, finally someone did a study that showed, what I always said, that low pressure causes my pain to be worse. And then there were the other people like, they spent government money to do that, and we knew that already, and big deal, and whatever. But and so I kind of tried to learn the lesson from that every time that I'm asked about this study, to say that it's the size of the data, that it's the ability to eliminate all the different confounders and the other effects that the other studies struggled to exclude, either because they didn't collect that data or they didn't think about it at the time they designed their studies. And so because we collected all that information, because we knew exactly where the people were when they reported, we were able to minimize so many effects. We were able to discount so many of the statistical confounders and other things that people would go, yeah, but you didn't account for that. And, again, I try to emphasize that, but you know how you guys are in the media, right? You know this, trying to just even get apart, getting across just the most basic fact, the take home message is so hard to get that to sink in, that these other subtle effects, like, yeah, but this was the biggest study and we had collected all kinds of, I don't think it's going to wash.
I think you've got a new chapter when you update Eloquent Science with a new edition.
Yeah, believe me, I thought a lot about how to communicate with the media on this. If you got any suggestions, I'd like to hear them.
Good luck.
And so what's next for it? Is there some excitement about a personalized pain forecast, or what comes out of all of it?
Yeah, that's kind of funny, actually, because that was exactly what we kept, I would say, selling this idea at. But we said, look, this is the path that we could head down if we collect this information, if we understand people's individual sensitivities to the weather-pain relationship, and, well, more importantly, if we understand the triggers of their pain. And it, like I said, we just didn't collect information about the weather. We collected other information about their sleep habits and their physical activity, and so forth as well. And so, as I mentioned, we have a PhD student now, Claire, who is looking at this, looking at the what we're calling the trajectories of people's pain. What is happening from day to day? Are they maintaining kind of a consistent level of pain? Are they having, rapid ups and downs, or is it all low? Is it high? Is it somewhere in the middle? And if we can characterize those pain trajectories and perhaps bin people into different categories, then maybe we can start to think about, okay, how do people in different categories respond? And this is a big project. I'm not sure the Cloudy with the Chance of Pain data set is going to be big enough to address some of these things. But nevertheless, we can at least start to look at the way that we might proceed down this path. And, I know many of these health companies that have apps, and people can report their own individual health activities and health status every day into those apps. I wouldn't be surprised if they're collecting this information with a goal, to make this kind of information available.
And by the way, I will say, Bill, I think statistical confounders needs to be the show title this week. There's something about that. That sounds good. But yeah, I think that's the bottom line. This is what people are, they will come to me. They say, hey, I need an app that's I need a weather app that will tell me when my pain is going to be especially bad. Or that's the bottom line of all of this. So how many years away do you think that would be practical for something like that to happen, David?
Well, again, I'm pretty sure that some of these health app companies probably are already doing it. We've been approached by several of them, wanting to know what we've been doing in it. If we could, consult on their work. We haven't seen much of what goes on behind the scenes, as you might expect. It's quite proprietary, but happy to talk to people. Again, they've got bigger data sets of many more people, and perhaps have the kind of information that one would really want to know in order to do this right. But again, I'm just pleased that we were able to really bring this issue to the forefront with some good solid statistics, and not just be another one of those studies that was floundering around on the edges and being more of a nuisance, or just another one of these studies that the doctors would just dismiss. Hopefully, like I said, and thanks for the publicity on your show. Anyone that wants to get in contact with us, happy to talk more about it.
David, I've got one more question. Did you notice any difference in demographic variables like gender or age in response?
Interesting. We had the study was quite, I would say it's unbalanced, but we had 86% women in the study, I think was what the number was. And so I don't remember there being any demographic information that separated that out. Of course, age, the age could have been a factor. I don't remember that we saw any big effects in that either.
I mean, I guess you got more smartphone usage, less smartphone usage as age advances and more younger still in your sample, but it's kind of
actually that's not true. Really? Most of the people were, well, they're middle-aged and older, but it's true relative to the population. We had fewer younger people participating in the study, but remember, our study was conditioned on the fact that you had to have chronic pain in order to sign up. I mean, people who are young and healthy would have no interest in our study, nor would, I suppose it would be useful data if they reported 11111 every day for their pain level, but it was a subset of the general population who participated in the study. So I wouldn't try to conclude anything beyond that, but we always preface it by saying, of people who are living, with chronic pain or have been diagnosed with chronic pain disorders, then, this is what this is what the results show.
And of course, the pediatricians are going to ask, did you have any children involved in the study?
Yeah, of course not. I think there were issues. Obviously, there were issues with that. You had to be 18 years old, I think, to participate.
Yeah. So again, what we're going to, and again, you've given us an hour, David. Thank you so much for your time today. And I know it's getting, what time is it over there?
It's just 5 o'clock here coming up.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's not too bad. We've had some guests, Bill Murray, they're on at like 2 a.m.
Last time he was on it. Like
it was 1 to. I cut out halfway through the show. It was already like 2:30 in the morning or 3 o'clock when you had me on. I couldn't. Sorry, James. I tried.
David, how often do you come back to the States?
Actually, more recently, a few times. I had to renew my driver's license recently, so I was back in Oklahoma a few months ago, and we're coming back for the AMS annual meeting. And last year I was back in November to record the podcast on the President's Day storm, where we had Lou Cellini and Lance Bozart reflecting on their experiences doing the research on that storm. So yeah, more recently since the pandemic broke, but also more frequently too. I miss it in many ways.
James A., you going to Denver? AMS? Bill, are you guys going?
I'm probably not.
The AMS annual, for those that have never been to one of these things, it is a large scale event, and it takes planning in advance. David, wouldn't you agree with that? I mean, it's like
absolutely. I'm always amazed at I like to think of us meteorologists as kind of a humble folk, and just have a bunch of us in a room and shoot the stuff. That would be great. But then I go to these meetings and they're real productions. It always looks like this is a level of professionalism that I didn't realize our community had sometimes.
I think they have an app now where you can download this app from the AMS, and you can kind of use that in planning, which sessions you will attend and what would be best for you. But yeah, they are very large scale. But
there's so much stuff going on. You need something like that. I've never successfully done it. I just want a piece of paper and a booklet. That's more useful to me to leaf through and see. Okay, where am I going to be next hour? But
I'm just hoping that Denver in January works out.
Yeah, fingers crossed. It could be.
Yeah, you never know what you get. It's like the box of chocolates here. But again, no, we're going to quickly do picks of the week. We don't have any recorded segments today. Typically, the show we do between Christmas and New Year's is a fairly shorter one like this. So we're going to just roll right into picks of the week. And David, we will stall as long as we can to give you a chance to think of a good pick of the week, something weather related. This can be a website, a data set, hardware, software, anything related to weather. And my pick, you guys probably saw this on some of the social platforms. It was the video from a Wyoming state trooper near Cheyenne last night. This was the wildest video. I mean, this guy looks like he's in basically a Category 3 or 4 hurricane, or the worst haboob ever, or it's horrific. The winds are probably sustained at 45, 50, 55 miles an hour. There's no visibility. Snow is heavy. The temperature was probably way below zero. The wind chill index obviously lower than that. But I think that video, that little short video that the trooper shot inside his patrol car, is a good representation of what so much of the United States is experiencing with this Arctic blast. But that will be my pick of the week. All right, James A., what you got for us?
My pick of the week is from the Great Oklahoma Mesonet, the Woodward Station, showing the faux the frontal passage of this Arctic air. At 11:50, they were 35 degrees. At midnight, they were 19.6 degrees. Pressure was rising rapidly. And as an honorable mention, I'm looking at Tulsa, the MEDAR out of Tulsa International Airport, reporting snow pellets, blowing snow, freezing fog, windy, 7, with a wind chill of 16 below zero, and that's not real pleasant. And they still issue TAFs on weather like this. I don't know who's up flying.
The only thing they're missing out there's a plague of locusts.
Give it time.
Wow. All right, David. Anything special you want to share with the audience here? Anything good?
Yeah, I had to think about that one, and so I went through my Twitter likes, and I found this one. This came from the Joint Polar Satellite System, the JPSS. So their Twitter handle is at JPSS capital P program, and so what they have is the text says, "You've heard of Elf on the Shelf. Now get ready for," and then they have a picture, and it's a satellite in orbit around Earth, and a giant trilobite on top of the satellite. So you've heard of Elf on the Shelf. Now get ready for trilobite on a satellite. So
boy, that's
clever,
a great show
clever
title.
guys there. It brought in two of my likes, weather and trilobites.
That's slightly awesome. All right, Bill Murray, what you got for us this week? Go.
Yeah, mine will be David's BAM's article, Weather Patterns Associated with Pain and Chronic Pain Sufferers, from the May 2020 edition of BAM's. And so, James, we'll get through the end of the year here. Nick Pittman will join us on the 2nd, Jerry Tracy on the 9th, and we'll have a Penn State-centric show on the 16th. So it's going to be a fun month of January once we get into 2023.
Awesome. And again, we will resume our Monday night schedule on the 2nd of January. And again, this show is our post-Christmas show, the week between Christmas and New Year's, and we'll get back to a regular schedule next week. Gosh, man, I'm going to stop posting full disc satellite images. Goodness gracious. You
Don't read the comments.
What it does, it brings out the flat earthers, the chemtrail loons, and the HARP loons. They all converge whenever you post one of these things. I mean, it's just absolutely brutal. So David, if anybody wants to maybe get in touch with you or look at some of your work, what's a good way of doing that?
It's just david.schultz, SCHULTZ, at manchester.ac.uk. And yep, that's the easiest way to get a hold of me, or just I guess search online for David Schultz Manchester, and there'll be the university's webpage, so forth.
Awesome. Well, this information has really been useful for me, and I'm sure for those that are listening. And again, we want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen to us this week and this year. We're wrapping up 2022 with this episode. For those that are new here, we typically record the show every Monday night at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. And for those that consume the show live, they're watching on YouTube, our YouTube channel. It's just youtube.com/weatherbrains. But we know that most of you listen, and we're thankful for that. We will do a long email segment the next time we gather together in early 2023. We'll have Jen do a long email segment. To get in touch with us by email, the email address, it is email@weatherbrains.com. So on behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew, I'm James Spann. Thanks for listening. Happy New Year. God bless. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for doing this, David.
David, thank you. This was
My
great,
pleasure.
great,
Always.
great show. Thank you so much.